Simplify is right. Yeah. Corona khilkhashnigi aid aya neve hobizadigi altkhanas nilga. I served during World War II as a Navajo code talker with the United States Marine Corps. I served there for a little over 2 years, stymieing the Japanese with our language that we had developed a code from that ancient language.
Because of the secrets the code talkers had to transmit, they were the first to hit the beach and the last to leave.
So when we got in the military, we had to talk about submarines and bombers and battleships and all these types of things for a reconnaissance plane. Well, it flies at night, it is quiet, doesn't carry any armament, and we said, well, that's a hummingbird. So in Navajo, it was daki tien, and that's hummingbird in the Navajo language. Say you wanted to give the rank of maybe the commanding officer, who might be a captain. And so to say captain, we would use the term railroad track, and so we would say in Navajo 2 tracks, besh na kie, two irons.
Probably one of the toughest, most important missions in the war.
We didn't win the war by ourselves, but we were very instrumental in the war's favorable outcome for our country. And so we consider our language to be a precious commodity today.
Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and salutation to the Akim around the world pushing this truth and sincerity. Today I'm going to get into a little history of the tribe of Gad during World War II. And, the tribe of Gad during World War II were known as the code talkers. And they would originate code and decipher code during World War II to pass messages securely amongst the battalions in the American Armed Forces, especially during the Battle of Iwo Jima. Now, during the Battle of World War II and World War I, the code that the Americans thought up or came up with was basically obsolete, and it was easy to crack, like taking candy from a baby. And Hitler, the Germans, Kaiser Wilhelm, the Germans, and the Japanese it was easy to pick apart Americans' codes for passing, war plans and certain codes amongst each other. Until they actually found the tribe of Gad, they found the natives, and they started using their code to pass messages back and forth. Why? Because their code was their language was the hardest to crack. In their language, one word could be multiple things. And due to Americans being immigrants, the Japanese and the Germans were able to pick up on the American language pretty fast. So what did they do? What did Esau always do? He ran to Israel. His last resort is to run to Israel. And basically, that goes back to the curses that they make slaves out of us. Because serving in Esau's armed forces is the same thing as making you a slave. So without further ado, I'm going to get into a couple of scriptures before I get into the history of the code talkers. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 41. It says, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." Now this is a curse that the Lord put on Israel, and that's still valid till this day. It says they shall go into captivity. So yeah, we might be walking around, supposedly free right now, but guess what? You're still going to be drafted into your enemy's armed forces. That's slavery itself. Working at these 9-to-5 jobs, that's slavery. But sticking on the military topic, being in this man's military is slavery. You can't eat when you want to eat. You can't go anywhere you want. You have to, be everywhere at a certain time all the time. You can't say certain things. They control what you say. They control what you watch. They control what you read. And it's pure slavery. It says, all thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. And Esau has consumed every part of the fruit of our land, man. He's consumed everything. He's taken everything for himself, including the tribes. It says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. And Esau has. He's become the head of the society over in the Western world. And thou shalt come down very low. And that's where you get, Israel being slaves. And that's where you get Israel serving in this man's armed forces at the lowest of the low. Because being a code talker in World War II wasn't anything to be excited about. Being a code talker in World War II was the lowest office that you could have. All you're doing is passing code back and forth, and you got the crappiest jobs. You're the one that had to dig the trenches. You're the one that had to get down in the trenches and to rub on your hands and knees and get through those trenches and clear out the trenches for the rest of the troops. And those jobs weren't easy. And they actually created a movie on this. It's called Wind Talkers. And Lord willing, I'll put a clip in post-production. But the movie is called Wind Talkers. It's starring, what's this guy's name? No, not Keanu Reeves. Nicolas Cage. And he plays the commander in the movie. And they actually got a Gadite to play one of the main protagonists in the story. And he was a code talker, or a so-called wind talker. And all he did was transfer code back and forth. And that's how they won, certain battles in the war. America got ahead because off of the strength of the nation of Gad and the nation of Judah in these wars. It says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. And Israel has been the tail, man. Israel's been the tail since Columbus supposedly came to the New World, man. Ever since he came over here and threw us into slavery, we've been the tail. Ever since America founded its government and basically got its feet off the ground, we became the tail, man. We do whatever the white man, our tribes do whatever the white man wants us to. When the white man says jump, they say how high. And that's the type of, nigga mentality, Israel is in right now. And there was no coincidence that they had to fight in these wars. That Israel has to fight in these wars and do certain tasks, man. Just like the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II. Esau uses Jake and Israel as flunkies, just to either get his point across or to use us as cannon fodder, man. That's it. And when you're useful, he loves you. When you're not useful, he throws you away like a pack of wild meat, man. And that's something Israel has to understand. But another reason why Gad got selected to fight in the war and take on that specific role, even though it was the crappiest role of the war, is because those top ranking generals in the military, they know the scriptures too, and they knew that the Native Americans were one of the tribes of the fiercest warriors on the earth, man. And this is 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18. It says, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh are valiant men able to bear buckler and sword, and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war. He's skillful in war. Were 40,000 men, 103 that went out to the war. So Gad and Reuben and Manasseh, they were skilled. They were very skilled in war. They're the best. They're some of the best fighters on the planet. Matter of fact, also Reuben were selected to be code talkers as well. They had the Seminole Indians being code talkers in World War I. So they've been flip-flopping Israel in these wars to calculate how they can maneuver and how they can use Israel to their advantage in these wars. That's how the beast has been getting ahead all these years in these wars, is by utilizing Israel. Let's get into a little bit of what a code talker is, though. This is Code Talker from Wikipedia. It says, code talkers are people in the 20th century who use obscure languages as a means of secret communication during wartime. The truth is now usually associated with the United States soldiers during the World Wars who use their knowledge, Slovakia, of Native American languages as a basis to transmit coded messages. In particular, there were approximately 400 to 500 Native Americans in the United States Marine Corps, whose primary job was the transmission of secret tactical messages. Code talkers transmitted these messages over military telephone or radio communication nets using formal or informally developed codes built upon their native languages. Their service improved the speed of encryption of communications at both ends of front lines operations during World War II. The name Code Talker is strongly associated with bilingual Navajo speakers, specially recruited during World War II by the Marines to serve in their standard communications unit in the Pacific Theater. Code talking, however, was pioneered by Cherokee and Choctaw Indians during the World War I. And down here, in the context tab, it gives you a list of code talkers you got. And all of these code talkers here are Jake. All of these code talkers are Gad. You got Cherokee, Choctaw, Comanche, Meskwaki, Basque, Navajo, Seminole, Windsor, which this is I think these are Filipino. Then you have Nubian, so you got, but that's still Jake. That's Jake. Either way it goes, all these code talkers are made up of Israelites. Let's go down here. I'm gonna go down to the Navajo tab, because the Navajo code was the best code of the war, and to this day, the Navajo code has never been broken, and it's the best. It was supposedly the best dialect that they could use because it has their language in one word can mean multiple things. One letter can mean multiple nouns, verbs, words, and things of that nature. And I'm just gonna read a little bit about the history. This is at the top of Navajo Code Talkers. It says Philip Johnston, a civil engineer of the city of Los Angeles, proposed to use of Navajo to the United States Marine Corps at the beginning of World War II. Johnston, a World War I veteran, was raised on the Navajo reservation as the son of a missionary to the Navajo, which this guy, Philip Johnston, he's an Edomite. He hails from England. It says he was one of the few non-Navajo who spoke the language fluently. And that's so basically, what he did, what this devil did was he went to the military and proposed that the Navajo had a better way of speaking that could be used as code for the war. And let's go down a little bit. Here it is. It says the Navajo code was formally developed and modeled on the Joint Army-Navy phonetic alphabet that uses agreed upon English words to represent letters. And here's the alphabet here. A for Alpha, B for Bravo, and so forth. It says the Navajo code talkers were mainly Marines, as it was determined that phonetically spelling out all military terms letter by letter into words while in combat would be too time-consuming. Some terms, concepts, tactics, and instruments of modern warfare were given uniquely formal descriptive nomenclatures in Navajo. For example, the word for shark being used to refer to a destroyer, or a silver oak leaf to the rank of a lieutenant colonel. Several of these coinages, such as Gophisters referring to running shoes, or ink sticks for pens, entered Marine Corps vocabulary. They are commonly used today to refer to the appropriate objects. It says the code book was developed to teach the many relevant words and concepts to new initiates. The text was for classroom purposes only and would never be taken into the field. The code talkers memorized all these variations and practiced their rapid use under stressful conditions during training. Uninitiated Navajo speakers would have no idea what the code talkers' messages meant. They would hear only truncated and disjointed strings of individual, unrelated nouns and verbs. So they created a whole system. Gad created a whole system of broken words and slang, and created this code that they can speak to the U.S. military. Of course, they had to teach the U.S. military to speak it, but they also couldn't speak it that well. So what they had happened was instead of the military having Gad transmit messages to the American generals and captains in the war, they had Gad transmit the messages to each other and decipher their own messages. So that way the process would go quicker. Because the problem is that what that was, Esau isn't that bright. So Esau couldn't learn a new language if he tried. Let's see. And I'm going to come down here. It says, as the war progressed, additional code words were added on and incorporated program-wide. In other instances, informal shortcut code words were devised for a particular campaign and not disseminated beyond the area of operation. So they created words for a specific tour, or for a specific site that they, or a country that they went into, and after they left that site, they threw away the code and started anew. And that was smart also. And the whole point of this is basically saying that Esau isn't smart. Esau wins these wars off the beast wins these wars off the backs of Israel. Everything that he does, everything that he builds, all the technology that's on the market right now that he's using in war as military application, all of this comes from Israel. Everything that he has comes from Israel. The white man, the so-called white man, can't even wipe his ass without having an Israelite standing there wiping it for him. It says, to ensure the consistent use of code terminologies throughout the Pacific Theater, representative code talkers to each of the U.S. Marine divisions met in Hawaii to discuss shortcomings in the code, incorporate new terms into the system, and update their code books. These representatives in turn trained other code talkers who could not attend the meeting. For example, the Navajo word for buzzard, or jesho, was used for bomber, while the code word used for submarine, beshto, meant iron fist in Navajo. The last of the original 29 Navajo code talkers who developed the code, Chester Naz, died on June 4, 2014, and the deployment of the Navajo code talkers continued through the Korean War and after until it was ended early in the Vietnam War. The Navajo code is the only spoken military code never to have been deciphered. Why? Because it was originated by Israelites. All the codes that Esau came up with weren't sufficient. They weren't sufficient, and they weren't secure. They got, I think I have a document here from history.net that tells you that the code got deciphered every 30 minutes. And if you're in wartime, you're trying to send a message, that's horrible. That's the difference between life or death. But this is just another example of the slavery of Israel, how Israel likes to work for the so-called white man, and Israel likes it. Israel loves being a slave for Jake, and this is nothing to be proud of, and this is how you say it, a disgrace to the people of Native American Indians, man. This is a disgrace to Gad, especially when you look at the history and look at all the massacres and all the raping, the robbing, the pillaging, the torture, the slavery, the outright just vain humiliation that Gad went through to keep their land some 200 years before. And this happened in 1942 to 1949. So, I want to say some 40 to 50 years earlier, Gad was being killed in the plains of America rapidly, like wildfire. Some 200 years earlier, Gad was being killed and massacred left and right for a whole 300 years straight up until World War II or World War I. Gad has been getting destroyed by the so-called white man, and these niggas just up and fight for this. I can't even put into words how disgusting Esau is. But these niggas up and fight for this man, knowing damn well their history. Because it was only about 50 years back that the treaty was signed, and Gad was, the war between Gad and Esau was, officially pronounced over in quotation marks. So 50 years later, you jump and fight in his military? claiming that you're fighting for your country, but your country has been taken over by a bunch of rabies infested mad dogs, man. You can't even you can't even take your country back from the invaders, and you go fight for the invaders and claiming that you're fighting for your country. That doesn't make sense. The mentality of Israel is totally screwed up, man. Totally screwed up. This is Hosea chapter 9, verse 11. It says, "As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away as a bird." And Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel, our glory has flown away as a bird. We have no more glory. We have no more honor. Because if we did, Gad, Judah, and the rest of the tribes wouldn't just up and fight in this so-called white man, this deadbeats military, knowing damn well that he's been mowing us down in the street since the dawn of time. It says from the birth and from the womb and from the conception. So from the minute we're born, our righteous, godly mentality flies out the window. Though they bring up their children, yet will I bereave them, and there shall not be a man left. Yea, woe also to them when I depart from them. And that's what's happened. That's what happened during World War II. There were more Gadites out of the 400, 500 Gadites that were made code talkers in the war. Only 29 of them survived, and the last of the 29 of them just deceased. I think his name was Chester Nez in 2014? Yeah, Chester Nez died on June 4th, 2014. He was the last of the original 29. So that should tell you something. It says, Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in the pleasant place. In the Americas and the Caribbean, we had pleasant animals, jewels, nice soil, nice healthy environment. But Ephraim shall bring forth his children to the murderer. And that's exactly what happened. They brought forth their children to the murderer right away. When that so-called white man that's been living on the Navajo reservations for however long he was living there, when he brought the military back, Gad jumped at the chance to fight in the military. Why? Just because they've never been off the reservations. And then being on the reservations is oppression. And they understand why they're in the reservations. And they still went up and fight just because they want to go somewhere else. So, you mean to tell me you look to your oppressor to let you out of your little doghouse? And then you go fight for him, and knowing he's going to take you right back to that doghouse and lock you back in it? That doesn't make sense. That logic is totally misconstrued. This is, I'm going to jump into the history document I was telling you about, history.net. This is World War II Navajo Code Talkers. And I'm going to start from the third paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole document because the document is really long. It's about 2 pages long, but it's really gets really in depth. It says, for the U.S. Armed Forces, communications, which had always been a complex issue, had now become a bewildering problem. Why? Because the Japanese and the Germans were cracking the codes like nobody's business. Japanese cryptographers were proving themselves amazingly adept at breaking top-secret military codes almost as rapidly as newer, more complicated procedures could be devised. So as fast as America was cranking them out, Japan was cracking them. Many of the Japanese code breakers had been educated in the United States. See? They've been educated in the United States, so they were hip to America's war practices on top of their languages. And that's why we're not supposed to, be in Israel. That's why the Lord laid down the law and said we weren't supposed to be mixed with these other nations. Because if you end up going to war with one of these other nations, they know all your tricks of the trade. Now you're trying to, react guerrilla tactics against their army, and they know every direction you're coming from. So that's like shooting yourself in the foot. That's like committing suicide. Where they had learned to speak English and had become familiar with American colloquialisms, including slang terms and profanity. As a result, American battle plans became known to the enemy almost immediately, often before they had become operational. And there, appeared to be no immediate workable solution. The result was an appalling loss of American lives. One war analyst commented, military communications were made available to the enemy like sand sifting through a sieve. And if you know anything about a sifter, or a sifter, when you put flour in a sifter, and you pull the lever, all the flour just pours out of the end, nice and filtered and fluffy, and easy to mix. So American code is easy to decipher, like deciphering a 6-year-old coloring book. It says some months before, Philip Johnston, a middle-aged civil engineer who lived in Los Angeles, read a newspaper article on military security. During World War I, he had served with U.S. forces in France, and although too old to fight in World War II, Johnston wanted to aid the current war effort in some way. From the age of 4, he had lived on the Navajo Indian reservation, where his parents were Protestant missionaries, and had consequently grown up speaking the Navajo tongue with his playmates. Now as he read, the concept of a secret military code based on the Navajo language flashed across his mind. In February 1942, after formulating his idea, Johnston traveled south to Camp Elliott near San Diego, where he tried to convince Lieutenant Colonel James E. Jones, the Marine Signal Corps communications officer, that a code based on the Navajo language could not be broken by the enemy. Jones, after listening intently to Johnston's idea, responded, "In all the history of warfare, that has never been done. No code, no cipher is completely secure from the enemy's interception. We change our codes frequently for this reason." But Johnston's graphic presentation proved so convincing that the two men agreed to set up a test. So basically, they set up a whole environment for this code to be created and they took their best code breakers to try and break this Navajo code, and they couldn't. It says Johnston's confidence in his theory lay in the fact that the Navajo language includes a number of words that, when spoken with varying inflections, may have as many as 4 totally different meanings. And that's just like Hebrew, because most of the Native American languages are broken Hebrew anyway. So you say a word in Hebrew, it can have 2 different meanings. Like when you say the word, for example, the word mayan, it means kind when you say it in a certain tense, and then when you say the word mayan in another tense, it means from. It says Navajo verb forms are especially complex. To most listeners, the language is virtually incomprehensible and has been variously likened to the rumble of a moving freight train, the gurgling noises of a partially blocked sync train, or jokingly the resonant thunder of an old-fashioned commode being flushed. As a result, use of the Navajo tongue was confined almost entirely to the reservation. And that's just a joke. They were basically saying that the Navajo's language was basically like nails on a chalkboard. Like, it's nothing that you would actually want to listen to. See, even in certain crucial historic topics where Esau almost loses a war and has to bring a whole nother nation of people to pull him out of the fire, pull his ass out of the fire, man, he still finds a way to belittle and to mock and talk down upon them, man. Especially the nation of Israel, man. Esau ain't shit. It says, few non-Navajos spoke to or understood it, and it was a hidden language, there not yet being an alphabet or written form for others to study. So there was no written. The language wasn't written down. The letters weren't written. The alphabet wasn't written. There was no phonetics, so to speak. And let me just go down here a little bit more because I'm not going to read the whole document. Here it is. It says, for almost all of the Navajos, travel was a brand new experience. Some had never been off the reservation, and many had never ridden on a bus or train. The majority of them had never seen an ocean and did not realize that they would soon be part of the ferocious war being fought in the middle of the Pacific. See, that's the devil for you, man. Once again, the devil, Esau himself, Satan, has hoodwinked or pulled one over the eyes of a tribe of Israel, man. And specifically the Gadites, man, because Gad is gullible. They've been pulling one over Gad's eyes for 300 years now, and they did it once again. They brought this whole idea, and I'm pretty sure they painted it to the Navajos as a picture of prosperity. But now, when they bring it to them, it's, oh, you get a chance to see the world. You know how military recruiters, how they do it, man. They always tell you you get a chance to see the world. Your trips will be paid for, your food's paid for, a roof over your head's paid for, transportation's paid for. You get to ride on a boat in the ocean. You get to ride on airplanes. Like, when you even think about it, who wouldn't want to do that? Especially when you've been stuck in a prison called a reservation your whole life. But the thing that wasn't being considered was, you've been stuck on these reservations your whole life, and they were created from your enemy that's been invading your country for the last 300 years, and that's tortured, robbed, raped, and murdered your people. But I guess that doesn't matter when you get a chance to fly halfway across the world, does it? Niggas is simple, man. It says, several of the recruits' families insisted that before leaving, their sons participate in a religious ceremony to pay for the young men's safe return. See? That's just ridiculous. So not only did they get to go around the world, but when they participate in religious ceremonies, they get to participate in their religious ceremonies to pray for the young men's return, man. So they actually got to do their customs in front of the so-called white man. They probably got to do their customs in the military too. So that was a plus. So that was another reason to go. It's like, you guys get to join the military. You get free food, get free water, get free transportation. You get to go halfway around the world. And most of the guys will say, well, if I can't pray, or if I can't do any of my religious practices, I don't want to go. Oh no, you can do that too. Go ahead. Matter of fact, I'll let you do a religious ceremony right now just to prove it. That's the slick talk of the devil. Let's move on to how this code actually held up in combat. It says, in jungle combat in the Pacific, the Navajos' innate strength, ingenuity, scouting, and tracking ability, habitual Spartan lifestyle, and utter disregard for hardships stood them in remarkably good stead. See, and like I read the second scripture in 1 Chronicles 5, Gad is a tribe of warriors, man. They're experts in tracking, they're experts in sword handling and bows and any type of war you can think of. And they're tough, and they know how to track animals, they can track people, they can move in any terrain. That's why they were chosen, not because their language is the best or anything like that. No, it's because they have the best bodies that are fit to fight a war. That's why. It says, at first, utilized usually only at the company battalion level, the Navajos became virtually indispensable as their capability and reliability were recognized. So they became virtually indispensable. And that's what happened with Jake. Jake pushed it to the forefront of every aspect in society. Why? Because Jake has the brains, Jake has the mindset, Jake has the body, and Jake has a thought process that none of these other nations have. But instead of using that for each other, they use it for the heathen that they love so dearly. But, that all goes back to the curses in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter that I just went over. And I'm going to pull up this last scripture, and hopefully I can put a clip of the movie Windtalkers in post-production. This is Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 14. It says, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? And the answer to all those, the first two questions is yes, he's a servant. Yes, he's a homeborn slave. Because if he wasn't a servant and he wasn't a slave, he would understand his history and think back to the hatred that these people have come to your land and that have showed you time and time again, and you would wise up and smarten up and to think, no, I'm not fighting for you. No, I'm not helping you in any way possible. Matter of fact, if I help you, you're gonna turn around and use that to destroy me like you've always done. And that's the reason he's spoiled. because he takes everything as a service. He wants to serve everybody. And that's just not proficient in this world that we live in. Especially in a world where the so-called white man is ruling, man. Because he's like a hyena. He's like a wolf, ravening wolf in the forest, man. But with that was just some history on Gad in World War II. Hopefully I can, Lord willing, Yahweh Bashmel Shara Tazaka, I can do more shows like this and actually go into more in-depth history on the tribe of Gad. And with that, Lord willing, you can see me on another show. And I want to say double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone to rule well. Call hello Yahweh Shemel Shai, and salutation to the elect, pushing the truth and sincerity around the four corners of the earth. Shalom.
Relay the damn coordinates! Arizona! Joe go! And they showed me!
좋게 커 내내 소리
카 카시 그렇지 카 그래서 제 카시 카제 마이 조이殿
水の中で喋っているように聞こえます。英語でやりましょうか。
내 사태 비카
Egoshi?
Target reference, Dog 1, south 700, elevation